Trying to get him. Chris has got a job to do here, and you guys are messing around, wasting his time.
We could do an hour podcast on this.
We could.
Our favorite quotes of the off.
Easy. Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and assisting me today is Mr. Vincent Bardini. Thanks for being here, Vincent.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me, sir.
Mr. Bardini is a long-time martial artist. You started with us as a kid.
Yes, sir.
And trained from when you were how old till how old?
Started when I was 8 years old. Trained consistently for 8 years through high school, where the leadership qualities I learned actually transferred into other sports, which was fantastic. And then about 14 years later, I took
a little time off and got back in.
Yes, sir.
I got it. So we're happy to have you back, and so I know we're just going to have a casual conversation on martial arts, and so let's get started.
Yeah, I think maybe we just kind of start, martial arts, resume. I'm, second degree black belt, under you, sir. You've exposed me to a variety of different martial arts, so, I can proudly say I'm a white belt in jiu-jitsu with one tip.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. That's going to be a long journey ahead.
A very good one tip white belt, by the way.
Very good one tip. But why don't you, tell me a little bit more. I know you have, 10 different black belts, but there are a few that I can't remember. So can you give me a rundown again?
Sure. So for starters, it's like, that they'll ask about the 10 black belts. And what I will tell you is that I have a really bad case of martial arts ADHD. And having black belt in 10 styles really means you're just not very good at anything. It means you can kind of do a lot of different stuff. But I started out in American Kempo. My first start was in 1971. It was wrestling. Did that for a couple years. Then American Kempo, I got my black belt in Kempo. Koshoru Kempo, which is old school under James Matosi, kind of more of a traditional looking Japanese style. Taekwondo under Grandmaster Jun Rhee. I have a black belt in Doce Pares, Filipino weaponry, also Serrada, Filipino weaponry. Okinawan Kobudo under Shion Nishiuchi, and Iaido under Shion Nishiuchi. Let me see, black belt equivalent in Jeet Kune Do. In what's called Dagobah blend, which is a mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Pedro Sauer and Carlos Valente. I think that I'm not sure if I think that's about what it is.
Okay. So from what you're describing, it sounds like you have black belts really in like the 5 fighting ranges, right? That covers kind of what we teach within our curriculum.
Sure.
Right? So we have like weapons range, punching and kicking range, clinch, grappling range as well. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah,
there?
Absolutely. And like I said, it's everybody's journey is different. And if you're first starting out, the goal might not be to be a multi-style black belt. I think that it's kind of like you have to scratch your itch. So I have nothing but respect for somebody that has started in the system and trained in that system and stayed true to that system. That's all they've ever done. The challenge is sometimes people use that as an excuse not to train anymore. Yeah, I only do one thing. Well, do you even do it anymore? And for me, just the process of learning new material and discovering has always been fun. And I think it kind of is very similar to I can only speak one language, and that's English, right? Barely. But,
yeah, me too.
But my understanding is as you add languages, other ones become easier. And that kind of, it sums up to me martial arts. There's only so many ways the elbow bends. So once you understand, I look at the difference between a black belt in Doce Pares, Filipino weaponry, and Serrada Eskrima, there's a lot of similarities. So a lot of the mechanics carry over from one to the other, so there's some little nuances that are a little bit different, and that's true with so many other arts.
Yeah, you mentioned language, because I remember I took 4.5 years of French in high school, and so we're talking about kind of the root bases that you have for plural of them or they or we or a formal you, and that translates. I was talking to my friends that took Spanish. Oh, you guys have that too, and so understanding that there are going to be those kind of basic conjugations there that would be very similar. So it sounds like martial arts.
Totally. Yeah, for me it was Spanish. I took 4 years of Spanish 1.
Okay.
Basically, I flirted with my teacher. She passed me. I never applied myself like I should have. But yeah, so that would be the kind of idea with it. And I never set out to have to like a certain number of black belts or anything. I just still enjoy training. And you search out a teacher, you start working with them, and next thing you know, you got a test coming up.
Yeah. So is there any one style that you're really focused on right now? I know, 2 times a month you're training with Shihan Nishiuchi, Iaido and Kabuto there. Is there anything specifically?
Probably the last 20 years, I spent a lot more time on jiu-jitsu, 25 years actually. But the last 6-8 months, not as much in that regard. So, for me, it's like I try to, sometimes maintaining is gaining. So, when I'm doing bag work, what style am I doing? You know what I mean? It's kind of like everything. When I'm swinging a stick, what am I doing? So I just try to keep my attributes, speed, strength, timing, balance, power, accuracy, kind of in check. And then in a very undisciplined fashion, I will try to stay up on my curriculum, meaning I don't have it's the first Wednesday, I got to make sure that I practice these techniques from this art. I don't really do it that way. It's kind of more of a gut check. I'll do a thing I call the daily 5x5, where I don't do it every day, even it's just in my head, that's what it's called, where I will do something, 5 different arts or 5 different attributes of training for 5 minutes. So like I might do traditional kata for 5 minutes, and then I might do bag work with weapons for 5 minutes. I might practice takedowns for 5 minutes, that kind of thing, and just kind of touch some random things just to keep the body kind of remembering, that muscle memory intact.
Yeah, okay. And that's kind of, just again, being physically active, every day, I think we're always a big proponent of that. We don't want to, sit and get, lethargic. It's the longer we can maintain that movement, the longer it goes for us, right? We don't start to stiffen up and
Totally, and that's what kind of I see, like in my generation of martial artists. A lot of my friends that I started with, or my contemporaries, a lot of them aren't training anymore. There's some that are, certainly, and part of the reason is because a couple things that I see, and I know that like Christian, who's here listening, who's doing the videotaping. Christian Argudo has been with us since he was a little kid, and he's in charge of the video. He's an awesome guy. I've probably given him the lecture about 50 times, right, sir? As far as, hey, you training on a regular basis, it's because the habits you develop as a kid. If you miss some years of training, and you're all of a sudden, let's say you haven't done anything, you train until you're 20, you're pretty athletic, and you took 10, 15 years off. Sound familiar?
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
But you were doing fitness conditioning when you were there.
I was. Yeah. So,
which
I did cross country and track and, ran collegiately. So I was still physically active.
You were doing CrossFit as well, right? For a while?
A little bit of powerlifting.
Oh, powerlifting. Yeah. I'm sorry. But so anyway, the point is that I've seen so many times guys will they think in their mind they're still 20, and they attempt something, but their body is not conditioned for, so they blow their knee out, hurt their back, etc. Or a lot of the guys from my generation who didn't take their health and fitness seriously, they kind of like, hey man, I'm gonna abuse this body. It's kind of here to, I'm gonna go out. What's the phrase? I'm gonna drive till the wheels fall off type thing.
Okay.
Well, what happens is all of a sudden you've got a replaced hip, and you need shoulder replacement surgery, and you got a blown ACL. Next thing you know, you're not doing anything anymore. So I just had some mentors, and 2 that really jump out would be Grandmaster Jun Rhee. Another one is Grandmaster Ernie Reyes, that both really coached me when I was a lot younger about respecting your body, exercising on a regular basis, and using moderation, because that's going to be able to keep you training when you're older. And so then I think the other thing is for longevity is that you just can't compare yourself with other people, because when it's like we had staff training class this morning, and I'm watching some of the young guys doing these head high spinning hook kicks, and I'm going, I used to, and I, wait a minute, there's a different, in other words, anytime you compare yourself, usually you either look really good or really bad. But what the best thing to do is to just compare yourself with your potential and where you are, and make sure that the material that you're doing is age appropriate, and skill appropriate.
Yeah, and not letting your ego get in the way, right? Because I remember training with an old friend here when he was still teaching, Nick Lim, and so Nick had been training. We were same age, maybe he's a year or 2 older than I am, but he had been consistently training and instructing and everything, and his form is still spot on. When I came back, I'm like, I can still do that. We were on the red and black attack, the demonstration team together, and it's just not the case, right?
Yeah, that extra 10 years he had made a difference, right?
Yes. Exactly. And I remember when I came back too, they asked, can you still do these forms? And I'm going to blame Mr. Agurto for asking me to do my double leg 540 again. And so that's where you're bringing both feet over the top and landing on them. And yes, I can still do it, but everything hurts when I land. That never happened. And so, we just got to remember we got to train for the body that we're in right now, not the body that we have.
And then that's one of those things it's okay to do every now and then, but if you did it on a regular basis, you're setting yourself up for injury. It's like a few years back, Chip Townsend, who's this amazing world-class martial artist, had a booth at the Super Show, and it was see how high you can kick. And I have a pretty good jump spinning crescent kick, and it was like, dang it!
I was there for that.
Were you there?
I was.
Dang it! I'm gonna get. It took me forever, but I got like the 7.5 foot thing. Oh, you were there.
I was. Yes, sir.
And I felt it for like I couldn't do that. If I do that every day, I wouldn't be able to. I felt that I think it was worth it, but I probably threw 30 kicks to hit it, and I felt it for a week afterwards, so I get it.
Well,
so,
I was thoroughly impressed when I saw it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, I've heard numerous times, but maybe the people listening, haven't. What got you started in martial arts?
So it's interesting. Everybody has their story. For me, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. My family was living in Montana, and we were driving across country or across the city, I don't even know, but I remember seeing a silhouette of a guy doing a flying side kick. And I didn't know what it was, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And so it's kind of like, I didn't find martial arts found me. It was just something, that was just, that looked the coolest thing possible. And I was really small for my age, and I didn't really get bullied a little bit here and there, but it's not like I was bullied, it was just, I was very conscientious of being small, and I wanted to be able to defend myself. And then, so like the Green Hornets, Kato, Bruce Lee, that was a big deal. And then, and I tried to get my parents to let me do martial arts, but back in the 60s, kids, it was very uncommon. And it was, people looked at it different. It was like a sport for ruffians, it's going to make you a hoodlum, so to speak. So it was, so in 7th grade, my pop did let me wrestle. So I went able to go out for the junior high school wrestling. I did that for 3 years. And then my older brother, Tim, when I was in about 8th grade, he went away to college, and he did a year of taekwondo training at a college in Montana, and came back and said, Mom and Dad, you got to let Dave do martial arts. You really do. So I was chafing at the bit, and we went down and enrolled at the local martial arts school. That was September of 1973, and that was just kind of the start. And the good news about my instructor, his name was Hunchi Bruce Jutnik, is that back then, and any old-time martial artist that's listening to this will be able to identify, when you'd meet another martial artist, the first thing you'd ask them is what style they were. And then you'd decide if you were friends with them or not, based on the style. It was really a weird thing. Like Taekwondo guys didn't like Shotokan guys, who didn't like Kung Fu guys, who didn't like Kempo guys. It was this crazy mess, which is so crazy because we're all, family, martial arts family, right?
Yeah.
But that's just the way it was. But my instructor tended to be really open-minded back early. So, at our school, although it was an American Kempo school, we did Kodokan Jiu-Jitsu, which is old school Jiu-Jitsu, and he exposed us to Filipino weapon really early on. So I was fortunate to have an instructor that was open-minded and receptive. So a lot of times people would preach that this is the only style, our style is the only style, everything else is bad, don't bother, kind of, that narrow focus. And so I was never taught that, so that made, learning a little easier.
Okay, and so it sounds like that mindset of learning multiple styles, which you've gone on, with those black belts, has kind of permeated throughout, since the beginning of your training, throughout your entire martial arts career, which is wonderful. Yeah, well, one of the things that the term Shoshin means beginner's mind, and it's one of the 5 spirits of Budo. And the whole idea is, in the mind of an expert, there's one option. In the mind of a beginner, there's many. Meaning, keep an open mind, learn from everyone. And I just learned that term maybe 15 or 20 years ago, but fortunately, that was what was instilled in me in my instructor, is that it was when you see another martial arts, another style, try to figure out what is it that you like. As Bruce Lee would say, absorb what is useful and disregard the rest. Excuse me. And so that was kind of that's just naturally how I was programmed. So to this day, if I go to a school or instructor, my eye automatically, because you can always find fault with anything or but I usually don't go there. My default mechanism, let me see, what do I like that they're doing here? What can I use? And that's been helpful, I think. Yeah, because at the basis of martial arts, is self-defense, whether it's physical or mental, right? And so we know that not one style is going to be the end all for defending ourselves. And so I think it's really important to just have an open mind anytime you're going to, whether it's, an academy, a school, learning different styles, just kind of have that open mind, be receptive, like you said, what's going to work for me, because the way your body works is going to be different than the way my body works.
Absolutely.
The way our mind is wired. Someone's throwing, a big swinging right at you, your go-to move might be different than my go-to
Absolutely.
move. I can tell you, for me, it's four swords.
Okay.
That's my go-to move. That's the
right.
one that's stuck with me this whole time.
All right, very cool.
Yeah. So for me, my martial arts story is, I still remember his name. His name's Sean Blotty. He was a student here for, he earned his junior black belt. I can't remember if he ever earned his first degree. I would say he did, though, because I think he was he helped me with my thesis.
Okay.
But it just came to a buddy day. I was his buddy, and, just came to a buddy day, tried it out, the one class, and then came for the orientation, and then, we were actually just talking about white belt moments during our staff meeting not too long ago. And I remember in room 2, the junior floor, I remember being at the front of that room with a young man, Charlie B, and, blonde kid about my size, and, I loved it, and I was hooked from that point. And, Ninja Turtles had a huge influence, early 90s, that's kind of the big thing there for 80s, you talk about Karate Kid all the time.
Ninja Turtles was it. Yeah.
Yep.
Were you there when we had Ernie Reyes Jr. come to the school?
I was not.
Okay.
No, I missed Ernie Reyes Jr. and I missed Chuck Norris by a few years as well.
Got it. Okay, so anyway, Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, so Ninja Turtles, just seeing, what they were doing, all the nunchaku and everything, and, it's, hey, this is fun, this is what I want to do. And when I was enrolled, my parents were like, this is, you're going to be learning lots of cool stuff, and all I thought was I'm learning how to punch and kick and, learn how to use weapons, and then, the life skills just kind of, transformed my life, and that was kind of how I got started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember you as a, anyway, I still have lots of memories of you as a little guy.
Yeah.
Red and Black Attack.
And you may not remember this, but when I first started, it was probably within the first 6 months of my training. We had a big carnival here. And so there was a dunk tank, there was a big Velcro flywall in room 3, there were some other things going on in room 2. You were sitting on the dunk tank, and I I had, a few balls to throw, and I missed, 3 times, and whoever was, telling me to throw the balls got your attention, and, they said, hey, go up there and just hit it, and I went up and hit it. And
I do remember that, yes. And that water was cold, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it was the warmest time of the year that we had that.
So don't trust this guy. So he doesn't play by the rules, that's clear.
I was thinking outside the box, sir.
Okay.
You mentioned important mentors, or instructors that pushed you, Grandmaster, Junri. I remember he actually came out to my second degree test, and I think he played harmonica for that test. You mentioned, Bruce Jucknick as a mentor, Shihami Shiuchi. Those are probably 3 significant figures in your life. Any others that...
Boy, lots, and I'm sure you have a lot as well. There's a lot of non-martial arts one. I think that the number one mentor, hands down, would be my father. Mm-hmm. And he's still alive. He's 99 years old. He's, he doesn't have his memory. He's got dementia. He's not the person exactly. He's still the person he always was, but a weaker version, let's say. But the thing about my pop was, he still is just, got this amazing attitude about things. He was a prisoner of war. He was in World War II. He spent 9 months in a Nazi German prisoner of war camp and did a couple death marches and survived a near firing squad in 3 days with 65 guys on a 8x40 train, a cubicle thing. If you imagine that, that's about 5 square feet per person, and but some people come back from that. They would come back bitter. He came back better because of it, and with a kind of an appreciation for life. And so I can think of so many things where his example, like one time that jumps out, is that I was young. I looked younger than I was, and we were waiting in line to go to the movies. And at the time you could get a discount for 12 and under, and I was probably 14 or 15. And I go, Dad, we can save $1 if you tell everybody I'm 12 years old because I look it. And he looked at me and said, my honesty, my word is worth more than the $1 I'm going to save by lying about your age. You know what I'm saying? And that's little stuff. It's like most of the time we don't think much of that. No big deal. But to him, it was like, no, man, I'm a person of my word. And so that would be a really important influence for me. And then, of course, a lot of influence from my older brother Tim. And then we went, this Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar, all those people that we did a lot of interaction with, not just certainly on the audio, but in live events. And then Shin Nishuchi, to this day, he's like a real samurai. He's like probably like what I consider my teacher now. He's been an amazing influence as far as just kind of living the martial way, kind of holding yourself to a high standard and doing the best you can to kind of live into it. So what about you?
For me, big mentors, I think we always mention fathers. My dad will always help me find mentors. So I look at that as a way of mentoring. He knows what he doesn't know and what he can't teach me. And so, that was one reason for putting me in martial arts. He knows that the values that I would learn here, he wouldn't necessarily be able to teach, because he was running his own business, owned a convenience store for 14 years, and so he wasn't able to be as active in my life as he wanted to. But all I remember growing up is him showing up, and so that is a big thing. I remember he'd go and do graveyard shifts and stuff, but what stands out is I know I could always count on him to be there. Of course, you, sir, were a big part in my life, and transforming my informative years. And then my cross-country head coach in high school, Coach Bob King, coached for many, many years, even in pseudo-retirement. He's the one thing I always remember about Coach King is it was always, get your head out of your rear. He didn't say it as kindly as that, but he made sure that you made a commitment to the team, so you were going to be at practice. So we always talk about DNSing our students. If it was 6:35 and I wasn't at 6:30 practice, he was on the phone. He was calling, wondering, why you weren't there.
So he established habits of accountability early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. That was a big one. And there are people that have taught me lessons that maybe I wouldn't count as mentors because I didn't spend a lot of significant time with them. And sometimes it was things that not to do, what not to do, right? Because we start conversing with people that maybe it's like, oh, I wouldn't do things necessarily that way. I would take it and do it that way. So at previous jobs, just working with some management, I didn't like the environment that was created.
So you successfully identified with something that you didn't want to do. Right?
Exactly.
Well, I tell you, a lot of times it's like we have to remember that our interactions on a daily basis have an effect on people, and sometimes it's the one thing someone said one time, either positive or negative, that can be positive or detrimental. And it's like that's why our position, especially if you're around people that are younger than you or you're mentoring others, is that we gotta, a couple things that jump out to me. If you really want to be able to influence someone, they should respect you, but I really think they gotta like you too. Like if you ever think of a school teacher you didn't like, you didn't try as hard for them. So the importance of being able to establish rapport with people is just crucial in our ability to be able to help to mentor them.
Yeah. So does your family share the same passion with martial arts that?
So everybody, my immediate family, of course, my pop. One of my favorite moments was my 94-year-old dad sparring my, at the time, 22-year-old son when he was testing for advanced degree black belt, and I got to be the center official. Yeah. I watched the video of it and I get all choked up. It was really cool. So, martial, obviously, my pop got his third degree black belt on his 80th birthday. He started with me. He was actually my student. He started in his late 50s, right? And of course, my older brother Tim and his wife and their boys. All three of their boys got their black belts as well. My wife is a black belt. She hasn't trained for a long time. My son is a black belt and also a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He still trains in jiu-jitsu on a regular basis. My daughter also got her black belt. She is not actively training, though she keeps herself fit. Although, like last Sunday, we came down. She wanted to hold, and I held mitts for her. So she's still, at some point, I assume she's going to get back into it. So, but clearly, the martial arts lifestyle has had a strong influence on what we do. To this, it's kind of funny. Kind of part of me for martial arts is health, fitness, and martial arts is not just martial arts. And my kids, I eat. For most people would say I eat pretty clean. I'm primarily plant-based, and okay, I'm plant-based. All right. I just think, and my kids growing up would just harass me about By the way, for them, at the house we had certain food. When they went out to eat with their friends, they could do anything they wanted. It was never, but we just is how we cook at home. And now as adults, they used to give me a hard time about how Ted, like one time they saw me having whatever it was, some almond ice cream, and they're, oh, you can't even have real ice, they just give me a hard time about it. But now as adults, they both eat really clean, and it's like, oh, they were paying attention. They may have been harassing me. Yeah. So I look at the martial arts as kind of a lifestyle, and so if that said, my family practices a pretty healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, for the life of me, I can't convince my wife to train martial arts. I'm thinking of one style specifically that I think she would just love. I think she'd love to do Krav Maga, just kind of, just hitting things as hard as she can, just being really aggressive with it, because she kind of has that mentality of, more the ground and pound
Right,
type
right.
mentality. 3-year-old daughter, 7-month-old son, can't convince him to, do much.
Pretty soon,
much
though.
of
That
anything, but
daughter's
soon.
going to be pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty soon she'll be that. She won't let me brush her hair, so she'll be that kid in class that just hair is kind of
Okay.
going everywhere. But we're gonna eke her in there. I've already taught her the 4 basic positions.
Okay, very
and she
cool.
can do a ki as well, and it's the cutest thing.
Absolutely.
She doesn't put her right leg back, but she turns her body, sticks out her butt, and her hands go.
Okay, very
Up
cool.
like that.
Very cool. Well, you know what? The key is to have her come down every now and then and watch class, man. That'll get her excited about it. Yeah, that's fun, man. Well, you're just getting into it. So one of the things, that advice I would give you is that when my kids they both started when they were 4 or 5, whatever it was, and I would tell them out of the gate when there's 2 things you have to do. You have to go to school and you have to do martial arts. Now, if you want to play soccer, as long as you finish the season, you're fine. If you want to play a piano instrument, as long as you do it for a year, you don't have to do it after that. But this is what we do. We go to school and we do martial arts. And so I know that several times growing up, and I also didn't force it down their throat, like meaning, I didn't make them come more than they had to. It wasn't like you have to come every day, It was. And I can tell there was times when they didn't really want to go, but in the back of their mind they're thinking, I know we have to go. And then what I would do is they'd come back after class, they'd be happy and in a good mood. I go, you glad you went to class? Yeah, it was great fun. What'd you do? And I would say, well, do you remember how I could tell you didn't really want to go, right? Yeah, but aren't you glad you did? Yes. So kind of anchoring that feeling is something. So that would be something to be thinking about, is to program early that this is what we do.
Well, and that's an important tip, I think, for anyone, right? If you're trying something new and you're really enthusiastic about it at the beginning, just remind yourself, each time, at the end, hey, I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to go back. It doesn't matter what age you are, right? It can be, you could be 5 years old, you could be 55 years old, you could be 95 years old. It's like, this is something new, I'm enjoying it. Let's anchor in on that feeling so I can remember it next time it comes up and I don't feel as motivated as I did the next day.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So, martial arts, you've been doing it for many years. How's that kind of permeated into your life and your relationships for others? How's that worked out?
I don't even know what life would be like without, martial arts training for me. I just can't imagine, it's hard to say, but I will tell you that the tenets of martial arts, and something that we've kind of developed over the years, the mastery mindsets, which is kind of like mental martial arts, you kind of alluded to it earlier, is that that's something that, as you age, you're not going to kick higher. And you're not going to be punch faster. There comes a point where you're going to get diminishing returns. I see it in a lot of areas in my training, and if you dwell on it, it can be a little depressing. But there's still plenty of things I can do, and will continue to do for a really long time. But what we can always do is we can improve our mindset on a regular basis, and that's a lesson that I think. Martial arts has taught me. And let me give you an example would be, let's just say someone throws a big right at me. There's a lot of different ways I can handle it, right? One way is I can stop. I can go power to power, right? And what that is, that's kind of facing a problem head on. And by the way, nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's what you got to do, okay? But also, you can sometimes just step out of the way and let it pass. And that's what we can avoid challenges by finding a way to skirt around them, so to speak. And how often do people draw conflict onto themselves when it's not really necessary, right? And so what part of that is going out of your way to not find reasons to be offended. Okay. Yeah. So the whole idea with like the samurai mindset is it's very similar to the Native American, that today's a good day to die, that we've heard. Samurai was like ready to die at any moment. And by the way, I'm sure there were some samurai that didn't live by that rule, but that's the Budo that we kind of the Bushido code that we kind of try to live up to. I'm sure a lot of them did live that ideal. But what that means is that because of that, you're ready to live you're not going to be stupid about it, right? And so what you're going to do is you're going to do your best to not make the situation worse than it is by like adding drama to it. There's a kind of a story, a parable about the 2 arrows. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but I think you probably are. But there's 2. You can get shot by an arrow, and you didn't see that coming. You didn't see that coming. You just get hit by the arrow, right? That's the first arrow. The second arrow is how you deal with that. And that would be, oh, I can't believe I got shot by how terrible this is, and oh man, well, that's making it worse. Or you deal with it, right? And that's not unique to martial arts, but that martial arts has shown me that, and that's something that I think you can, you could get better at, throughout your whole life, is trying to apply the concepts that we teach on the mat in the real world.
Yeah, if we're talking about, arrows hitting us, right now, I mean, we were all, reeling from 2020 still, here we are 2 years later, and, we kind of got hit, everything's shutting down, what do we do? And now, there have been kind of those roller coaster rides, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed, and so now, we've been hit with that first arrow, we know what's going to happen, or, what's the worst that could happen, because I don't think it's ever gotten as worse as it first did, and so I think we've all kind of come out better as being able to handle those types of situations.
And to your point, like this latest trend, it's I find myself going, oh no, this again. And wait a minute, what I'm doing is I'm drawing that second arrow to me. Just take a breath, be calm and methodical, and get through the day. In other words, what can you do? Any challenge you have, you do the best you can today, and you don't worry about it beyond that. You get up tomorrow and you do the same thing. And I think COVID's taught us that really well.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned, doing the best that you can. Something that my grandfather has always told me and told my dad, and my dad has relayed to me, is kind of the generational fatherly advice, is doing the best with what you have at the time. Mm-hmm. Because there's only, so much you can do. If you start worrying about, this over here and that over there, well, I can't have an effect on what's going on in all these different places. I can only do the best with what's around me.
So important. So there's things you can control and there's things you can't control,
yeah.
Right? And the things you can control, which really, there's not a lot.
No.
But you can control the way you view things. Mm-hmm. That's in your choice. You can control where your mind goes, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't control what the economy is going to be, and you can't control what other people are going to think or do. Mm-hmm. But there is things you can influence. You can influence your health. Mm-hmm. You can influence your relationships. You can influence the success of your business. You know what I'm saying? And so you do what you can. Yeah. With what you have, absolutely.
Yeah. You have any of those conversations in your head where you're going into a meeting with someone and you're going through all those different scenarios of conversations, and you kind of end up going into that with your guard up, maybe, or maybe it's a little more relaxed, thinking, oh, they're going to say this, they're going to say this. And realistically, that's not how it pans out, right? We're kind of, imagining, that scenario, and we have no control over what they're going to do. Yeah. But in our mind, we already know it's going to go this way.
Yeah. Or we get really mad at somebody for the argument that we had with them in our head.
Yeah, on the car ride home, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I can't believe they didn't say that. I just imagine they said that. Yeah. There's a scenario, and I don't know if you've seen this or not before, but if you have, just play along with it. Just sit up a little bit. So if your response, I'm going to do something, I want you to respond really quickly. What's your response? You put your guard up, right? If I put my hand out, you put your hand out. So that's being reactive to your environment, to your point. But if you put your guard up, I can respond with the guard up. That's the reactive. Or you put your guard up and I can go like this, and you put your hand out. And so the ability to be able to take that energy into a negative environment, you know what I'm saying, to where you go somewhere where people have their guard up, not physically, but kind of emotionally, and being able to put your hand out, so to speak. By the way, I posted this. I wrote a little thing about this a few weeks back, and some guy says, dumbest thing you can do is go and shake somebody's hand up when they have their guard up, and I didn't mean it literally.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to walk up, put my hand, get too close to you, when your guard is up. But more figuratively, metaphorically speaking, is that can you, go into a room and decide, all right, I'm going to